Deputies Claire Daly, Seamus Healy, Joan Collins and Joe Higgins. The impending strike by staff of the EBS because of the withdrawal of their 13th month end of year payment.
I am sharing with Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett only.
I'm afraid,
Minister,
Deputy, that's not allowed. Why? You cannot share with a deputy who has not been called by the Ceann Court. You will have to take the time yourself. It has to be a deputy that is named.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I'm sorry about that now, and Deputy Boyd.
Submit this twice this week.
Deputy Boyd Barrett had it in yesterday at Ceann Court, but it is. You can take it a joint submission by all the deputies concerned. I'll go ahead. I am glad that the Minister for Finance is here, and Minister, what we would like to have with you this afternoon is a quiet, measured conversation about the issue that I am raising, because it does concern 370 workers at EBS Limited, which is now merged with Allied Irish Banks. Minister, we are talking here about very low-paid workers and middle workers, coal-face workers, not the erstwhile high flyers who expanded the property bubble and destroyed the economy in the process. Now, for 45 years, workers were paid their annual wages in 13 equal instalments. So a worker currently, after 9 years of service, who would be on a gross of €30,000, that's before tax, would receive 13 instalments of €2,308 each, that's before tax deduction. As you'll agree, Minister, a modest wage. The 13th instalment was paid in December before Christmas, but was accepted by everybody for decades, as I said, to be really part of the basic wage, not a Christmas bonus. And de facto, for decades, was consolidated into the wage. Minister, on the 6th of December, possibly as you were on your feet here announcing the budget, the workers were informed that their 13th instalment was not going to be paid. The workers had expected it the very next day in a pay packet. Obviously, workers had planned for Christmas, spent it on their families' Christmas preparations, etc., and were totally reliant on it, being as they are very low-paid or middle-paid workers. So this is a devastating blow. A loan facility that the management of EBS offered the workers at 12.5% interest as an alleged compensation is really adding insult to the injury. It's because of the huge outrage and injustice to the workers feel that they have called a strike on December the 20th, which, if it went ahead, would lose a day's pay more for those workers. The Department of Finance, I understand, Minister, you can enlighten us, made that decision by virtue of powers invested in the department or in yourself, perhaps, in conjunction with AIB. So, also senior managers on 90,000 a year who had the same arrangement are not having this 13th instalment withdrawn. Not that it would justify it if they were. But can I ask you in conclusion, Minister, on behalf of those workers, to go immediately into conclave with officials, with AIB management, with EBS management, please ensure that this decision is reversed, and you can cast yourself in the role of Santa Claus rather than being put in the role of you know who.
Thank you, Deputy.
As it is Christmas time.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister, you have 4 minutes to reply.
At the outset, let me say that I have the utmost sympathy for the staff regarding the timing of the announcement of the decision that this so-called 13-month payment will not be made. This does not reflect well on management and should not have happened. However, the facts of the matter as presented to me is that this payment is described in the contracts of the relevant staff members as the payment of a Christmas bonus. The terms of the latest capital investment in EIB and its accompanying letters made clear in July 2011 that no bonuses whatsoever could be paid or awarded. Since July 2011, EBS is a wholly owned subsidiary of AIB and covered by the above conditions. My department made it clear to AIB management that when approached in November and again in December, this was our understanding of the relevant provisions of the agreement underpinning the state's capital investment in the bank. Much has been made of the fact that these payments have been paid for a number of years previously, including especially from 2008 onward. For clarification, let me explain that when the state invested monies in EBS in May 2010 by means of a subscription for a special investment share, remuneration restrictions only applied to senior management. As a result of this investment and the recommendations of the covered institutions Remuneration Oversight Committee, no bonuses have been paid to this cadre of staff since 2008. As conditions deteriorated and further capital was injected into AIB in December 2010, these restrictions were broadened to formally prohibit the payment of bonuses to all staff and became the template that would apply to all of the institutions as further investment was made. Had EBS been maintained as a separate institution following the PCAR exercise of March 2011, any further injection of capital would have been covered by the expanded restrictions. The Government decided as part of the restructuring of the banking sector that EBS would merge into AIB, and as a result the wider restriction on the payment of bonuses came into effect. Either way, the blanket restrictions on the payment of bonuses to all staff would have applied. And I have indicated the above when replying to parliamentary questions on the matter yesterday and today. As I have stated, while I have sympathy with the staff on the timing issue, it has to be stressed that the state's capital investment into banking has projected jobs throughout the financial sector. Without this crucial investment, our banks would have encountered severe difficulties and many jobs would have been lost. The state has already invested some $20 billion in AIB and identified it as one of the two universal pillar banks. Last week saw the introduction of a very difficult budget that meant reductions in state payments to some of those who rely on the state as their only source of income. This was in addition to other reductions in previous budgets, including the termination of the Christmas bonus payment to social welfare recipients. We are facing three more difficult budgets as we attempt to extricate ourselves from our present challenging economic and fiscal circumstances. While I readily acknowledge the sacrifices made by employees, both public and private, in this battle for survival of the nation, in this context it is not unjustified for a bank which the state has rescued not to pay Christmas bonuses. The proposed strike is very much to be regretted. I fully acknowledge that the staff have a right to express their grievance in any legitimate way they feel, but I would call on the union and the staff to reflect again, taking all the circumstances into consideration. I understand that the EBS is putting in place a loan scheme to facilitate employees to assist them in meeting their commitments over this period. Finally, let me be clear that this is not a case of going after the little people who have not caused this crisis, as has been alleged. While most senior employees have departed with generous remuneration and severance arrangements, this latter aspect is a cause of great annoyance to citizens and shared by the Government. In such circumstances, we are greatly constrained by the strong legal advice available that recovery of such awards would not be possible. Hence the introduction of the blanket restriction on the payment of bonuses and other remuneration items, now included in the latest agreements with the banks. In the circumstances, I do not think it is unreasonable to ask employees of a rescued institution to forgo a Christmas bonus where it is totally dependent on the state for survival, whilst the Government has to ask citizens to accept much greater impositions with the likelihood of more to follow.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Higgins, you have
well,
2 minutes.
That's a deeply regrettable response, I have to say. And for Minister Quinn to be enthusiastically nodding his head in agreement is rather ironic. Bonuses, ministers, and the prohibition of bonuses in the banks is enthusiastically supported when it relates to the high flyers and the fat cats who devastated our economy with their reckless gambling and reckless lending. And the bonuses we are talking about were 60, 70, 100,000, maybe $250,000 in previous times. What we are talking about here is workers on €26,000. €26,000, one group of workers. You are now denying them a gross of €2,000 as the 13th instalment. Clerical staff on €34,000 are being cut a gross of €2,600. This a day before it was due. Of course, if you know anything about families, and I know you do, you will understand how they will have prepared, spent that money for the Christmas and relied on this, which wasn't a bonus. As I said, for 45 years this obtained. And Minister Noonan, I'm afraid it is going after the little people. A manager on 91,000 would traditionally get two instalments, the 12th and 13th in December, of 7,000 each. The manager on 91,000 will still get the 13th instalment of 7,000 gross. This is really, really unjust and unfair. And it compounds the whole injustice of making ordinary people pay for this crisis. They are not responsible for it. They are the victims of this crisis, like people generally around the country, and the vast majority of ordinary, decent, fair-minded people, which is the vast majority of our people, would agree that they should be paid this 13th instalment of what is their normal wage.
Minister, you have 2 minutes.
Will you think again, Minister, please?
Well, you know, it's a matter for the management in EBS, and they were told last July what the rules were. And the Department of Finance and myself were responding to very strong advocacy by yourself, Deputy, and various other people who said no bonuses should be paid in the banks as long as taxpayers' money was bailing them out. You have lectured me. You have lectured the Taoiseach. You have been raising it on Taoiseach's questions on several occasions. No bonus to the banks. The banks are being bailed out by the taxpayer. Why should the banks pay? Why should the taxpayer pay for bank bonuses? Now you have a different view. But consistency was never your strong point. But I would like this to be resolved. No, your position is dishonest. If your position is that no bonuses should be paid to staff in banks, because really that is using taxpayers' money to pay bonuses, then you can come back and demand the payment of bonuses. Now, you know, if you kind of admit to your own inconsistency, we'll do our best to resolve the issue. There's no games being played. No, you're the people.
Let the Minister complete.
You're the people who rant and rave about bonuses. You have done it on several occasions.
Deputy.
I'm glad that you are more moderate in your approach today.
Let the Minister finish his reply.
But you have put great pressure on the banking system and on the government not to pay bonuses. Now we're not paying bonuses, and you want us to reverse it. So will you tell me, like, which do you want? Do you want us to pay bonuses, or don't you want to pay bonuses? You want to pay some bonuses. You want to pay bonuses to people you select, but not bonuses in general.
Thank you, Minister.
It really doesn't become to really divert attention
to
the issue. You are diverting.
Deputy, there's no further right to reply, so we move on to the fourth item.
You put them in the same bracket as the big guys.
The yes